Hi, welcome to this tutorial about Microsoft PowerPoint. We'll go over the basics of creating a slideshow. Of course, first we'll talk about creating the slides themselves and what the different slide layouts offer you. We'll learn to insert text and image content. We'll learn about applying styles through a design theme. And then, of course, we'll learn how to show the presentation. Let's get started. I will open up Microsoft PowerPoint. A reminder that I am working in PowerPoint 2016. So if you're working in an earlier or later version than I am, your screen may look a little bit different, but all the same content will primarily be there. When you open PowerPoint, it offers you templates at the top and recently used files at the bottom. I will go directly into the blank presentation template to start a new file. When I click on that, it opens a file for me. Notice that PowerPoint immediately assumes that I need a title slide. And that's pretty standard. Most people start their presentations with a title slide. That's very, very common. But if you wanted to change it, you could certainly do that. You don't have to live with that. It's just Microsoft trying to make things easier for you by offering that to you. Notice that like Word and Excel, we have a title bar at the top. We have a ribbon underneath the title bar. Ribbon is broken into tabs. The tabs are broken into groups, and the groups hold our various command buttons. At the moment, we're looking at what's called normal view, and the normal view is where you edit content. It's the only screen in PowerPoint where you can actually change what's on a slide. We'll take a look at a few other views in a minute, but right now we're going to work in the normal view. So, the scenario that I have in my imagination for this presentation is that we are working at a zoo. And our supervisor has asked us to make a presentation for new employees. It's to get people familiar with the do's and the don'ts of working at our zoo. So we will begin with this title slide. Notice that we have placeholders here. We have one placeholder for the main title and another placeholder for a subtitle. We can live with that. We can change these if we want to change them. It's entirely up to us. So I'm going to go ahead and work with this for now. It says click to add title, so I will click right there and I get a flashing cursor and I will type my title. So Santa Fe Zoo. And I press my enter key and say goals and standards. Okay, that's my main title. I'll click down below and I will say our goal is to provide an educational opportunity for all visitors. And I'll put a second line in that effort. We maintain a clean and organized home. Did you see how I misspelled the word organized and PowerPoint fixed it for me? I actually did that on purpose, although I do it not on purpose all the time. I'm kind of a messy typer. But PowerPoint stepped in and cleaned up my act for me, and that's pretty nice. Notice that I didn't fill this entire placeholder. You don't have to. You can if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to. And if I want to make a change to either content, all I have to do is click on it and I can retype it, delete it, change it any way I want. If I click outside both placeholders, then I no longer see the borders around them. And this is actually what my first slide would look like. If I did nothing more to it and presented it to the audience, this is actually what it would look like. We will make some more changes to it, but for right now, that's fine. It's a good beginning. I will take my mouse and click the Save button in my Quick Access toolbar at the upper left corner of my screen. And notice that PowerPoint, in a very similar fashion to Word, looks to see if I have useful text that I can use as a file name. And I think Santa Fe Zoo, I might put goals and standards there. I just have Santa Fe Zoo, that might not be enough for me to delineate exactly what that file has in it. Let's just put this onto our desktop, onto my desktop. So I will save this to my desktop. There's the file name, there's my desktop, and I'll click Save. So now my file is saved, and I don't have to redo this work, and I can move on from here. So we're going to create another slide. Here on the Home tab, in the Slides group, there's a series of buttons that will help me do that. I will click the bottom of the New Slide button, and when I click on the bottom, I get a number of different layouts that I can choose from. Here's the title slide layout. I can go with a title and a single piece of content. I can go with two content, which I like. That gives me a title, and it gives me a place to put text in one side and maybe a picture or something on the other side. And I would like to do that. I have to go on into my next slide and start listing the do's and don'ts of being an employee. So I'll click on this two content slide. So here I have the layout that we chose, and I click here to add a title, and then down below I'll be able to click to add some text if I want to, or add a picture or something. So this will be the do's. Actually, I'll just say do. I'll say what to do and what not to do. So I'll say do, and I click in this placeholder, and notice that where it says click to add text disappears, and it gives me a bullet, which is actually just what I wanted. So I'll say be on time. Do be on time. And I will say be clear about your tasks. Use care and caution when handling an animal. Give lots of TLC to the animals. And tell all your friends about the zoo. Okay, so now I have the text content for this slide. I've got the title, and I've got a list of do's. I could type more text over here if I wanted to, but I think it would actually be more fun to put a picture in there. Now, there are a couple of different ways to get a photo onto a slide. You can use a placeholder like this, or you can come up here to the ribbon and click on the Insert tab and use the Picture button here. But for this time, I want to use the placeholder. Using a placeholder is really useful because it maintains a useful size of whatever you insert. It doesn't let the picture flow over on top of your text. Whereas if I use the Insert tab Picture button, I could get into a little bit of trouble with that. And I'll let you see it both ways. On this slide, we'll use the placeholder. So I'm not going to click to add text. Instead, I'm going to find the Insert Pictures button down in here. There are a number of different things that we can insert, but I want to insert a picture, and that happens to be this button, so I'll click on it. When I click on it, it wants me to go find some pictures. And look, it brings me to my pictures folder on my computer, but I actually have the pictures for this somewhere else, so I'll go find them. And they're here in my PowerPoint folder for this class. Now, I have some pictures that I found on the internet, and I would like to use, I think the fox would be a nice one to use here. So I'll click on the fox, and I'll click the Insert button in the lower right corner, and look at that. Doesn't that just dresses up the slide really nicely? I might drag it up just a little bit, but notice that this fox picture doesn't spill over on top of my text. It positioned itself in a really nice part of the slide in a perfect shape and size. Before I do anything else, I'm going to save again. I also want to remind you that when you get pictures off of the internet, you need to be careful about it. You need to make sure that you're not stepping on somebody's intellectual property. I got the pictures for this presentation off of a site called Unsplash, U-N-S-P-L-A-S-H. Unsplash doesn't have only free photos, but it does have quite a few free photos. And it's a nice website to go to if you're looking for something that you can borrow and use without stepping on the legal properties issues. At this point, before we do anything more and build any more slides, I would like to apply a design theme. It's important to do that early on because design themes can change where things sit on your slides. And if you wait until you've already designed 10 or 15 slides and then you remember, oh, I got to put a design theme on there, it could cause some trouble for you because it could force you to have to change a lot of things in your layout, and then you end up having to resize things and move them around. So make your design theme choice early on. In order to do that, I will click the Design tab on my ribbon, and look at this. In this themes area here, I have a lot of design themes. Look at this whole big palette of them here. There are a lot of design themes that I can choose from. And you'll notice that I get a preview as I move my mouse around. This one's sort of bold and bright, isn't it? This is called the Berlin theme. Notice it's slightly different on the title slide than it is on my second slide. And the title slide, actually, I think that looks pretty good. This second slide, that also looks pretty good. I probably just need to move my fox down a little bit. There we go. So that wasn't too much of a shift. But be aware, if I had 20 slides already made, I might end up having to do a lot more editing. But anyway, I think this is good. I can work with this. So I will click the Save button on my Quick Access toolbar. Let's make another slide. Now I can go back to my Home tab. I can click the bottom of the New Slide button. Notice that once I've picked a theme, I get a whole lot of different layouts now. I get more to choose from than I had before. But because I've done the do's, now I have to do the don'ts, the do's and the don'ts. So I'm going to go to the same layout, the to content layout. And now I have a third slide, which also has a similar layout to my second slide. I'll click to add title, and I'll type don't. And I won't put the text into this placeholder. Instead, I'll put my text over on this placeholder. So I will say, don't be late. Don't yell or scream at an animal. Press my Enter key. Now I'm going to hit my Tab key on my keyboard one time, and that bumps me in one level of my bullet list. And I can say, having a problem? Ask for help. I'll press my Enter key again. It brings me to that same level in the bullet structure, but I will do Shift Tab to take myself back out to the original level. I'll say, don't yell or scream at a coworker. Press my Enter key. I will tab in again, and I will say, time out. Take a chill pill. I'll press my Enter key, and again, I will Shift Tab to return to the primary level of my bullet structure, and then I will say, don't be a slacker. So those are the don'ts. We have our do's and we have our don'ts. Those are our don'ts. Again, I'm a lazy girl. I don't want to have to do that again, so I'll click my Save button, and that way I know that my work is protected. Now we'll put in another picture, but we won't use the placeholder. And if you're not going to use a placeholder at all, you might as well just delete it, get it off the slide. So I'll click on the placeholder as an object. Notice I didn't click inside it. I clicked it on the border to select it as an object. I'll tap the Delete key on my keyboard, and it goes away. Now I'll click the Insert tab of my ribbon. I'll come down here, click on Pictures. When I click on Pictures, it brings me back to that same folder where I have the pictures for this slideshow. And let's use the lion. Ooh, lion. I'll click on the lion. I'll click Insert. Now look at that. Do you see how it just totally dominated the slide? It's way too big. Really a cool picture, but way too big. So I have to resize it. And I will point at the upper right corner so I can maintain what's called the aspect ratio of the photograph. And when I grab that upper right corner, I can resize it, move it, maybe make it a little smaller. There we go. So don't be late. Don't yell or scream. He's yelling or screaming, isn't he? He's an angry boy. All right. Now I will click off of that, and now I have easily resized the photograph. So it's not a huge problem, but you do make your life a little easier for yourself if you use the placeholders to insert that kind of content. I'll click the Save button on my Quick Access toolbar, and we have just one more slide to make. I will notice that I am down here on my third slide. I can tell that because there's a border around it here. I can also tell because of the content on the right side. I will click New Slide, and what will we pick? I will go with the title only this time. So I'll say Santa Fe Zoo. This is my final slide, and this time I will insert a text box. And when I click on text box, it's hard to see because of these colors here, but notice how my mouse pointer has changed, and it looks like a little sword actually. And I will come down to this lower area and draw a box to type in my text. And now do you see that I have a flashing cursor there, and I can say, we have now a clean and friendly atmosphere for happy animals, happy staff, and happy visitors. All right, so if I would like to resize that because it looks sort of small, maybe I'll put another line in there, and it might be nice to reshape this a little bit. Notice that when I reshape the placeholder, the text arranges itself inside that placeholder. And also maybe I'd like to make the font bigger. I'll highlight that font on my Home tab. I'll use the Increase Font Size. And I might also like to center align that. We have now a clean and friendly atmosphere for happy animals, happy staff, happy visitors. Up here, I might also like to center align that. I just need to center this a little bit more, don't I? There we go. So that's my final slide. Pretty simple. I will click the Save button on my Quick Access toolbar. Now, I'd also like to show you how to actually present your slideshow. Down here in the lower right corner, we have a number of buttons that control the different views that we're in. At the moment, we're in the normal view, which I've said to you already. Next to that is something called Slide Sorter View. I'll click on that for you. Slide Sorter View is a really nice way if you want to move your slides around, if you want to change the order of them. Now I've really sort of bollocksed them up a bit. There we go. But you can use this to shift them around. This particular screen is especially helpful to do that if you have a lot of slides. If you have like 20, 30, 40 more slides, I'm zooming out here, and if I zoom out, I can really see a lot on one screen. If I go back to my normal view, I can change the position of slides here too, but I can't see as many. I can change the shape of this panel here where I could see some more, but I can't see as many as I could see here in the Slide Sorter view. The view for actually showing your slideshow is this fourth button here. If you point at it without clicking, it says Slideshow. I want to make sure, do you notice here how I'm on slide number 2? If I click Slideshow now, it will start with that slide. And I want to start with slide number 1. So I'll select that, Then I'll come down here and I'll click on the slideshow button one time. And here's my slideshow, filling the screen. I can move forward easily by just clicking on it. Oh boy, that looks pretty good, doesn't it? I can click again. Rawr. There's my lion. I can click again, and there I am at the last slide. I could right-click, and I could say, See All Slides. If I needed to go back and make a point on another slide, perhaps an employee says, What were those dues? What is it I'm supposed to do? Could you tell me again? I could go to that slide easily. Again, I right-click, and I say, See All Slides, and I can jump around to any slide that I want to bring forward. When you're done with a presentation, there's a number of different ways for you to end a presentation. If I just click right now on the slide, PowerPoint will always bring you to a black slide at the end, which you may or may not like. If you want to avoid this, you could turn your projector off on that last slide, or you could just leave that slide on the screen until your audience goes away. But be aware that if you don't do one of those two things, your audience will see this black slide. And if you click again, your audience will see the editing view of your PowerPoint presentation. So do make a choice about that. You decide what you would like your audience to see at the end. All right, now finally, we'll take a quick look at printing your slideshow. You may want to print your slideshow to have handouts for your audience. You may want to print your slideshow so you can remind yourself what the sequence of slides will be. There are many different reasons why you might want to print it. To do that, I will click the File tab on the ribbon. Then I will come down and I will click on the Print command. And that shows me a preview of the print on the right with some settings on the left. Notice that if I want to scroll through my slides, I can use this tool down here at the bottom of the preview screen. Of course, I can select a different printer if necessary. I can decide how many, whether or not I want to select and print all my slides or just some of them. This is really the tool that I most wanted to show you. This lets you decide what the layout of your prints will be. I'll click this option arrow here. Notice that I can do full page slides, in which case there is one slide per piece of paper. I can do something called notes pages, which is also one slide per piece of paper. And there's something called speaker notes that you can create that would show down here. I might talk about those in another tutorial, we'll see. But this is not the most commonly used printout. I could do an outline of my presentation. If I click on outline, there's no images at all. This just gives me the text of my presentation. And this is not a bad thing to have in front of you when you're giving your talk, just to remind you of where you're headed in your presentation. Or I can choose a different number of slides per piece of paper. It can depend on why I'm printing. What do I need? There are a lot of different options here. And if I go to 4 slides per page and then go to from portrait to landscape orientation, for this particular presentation, this is probably my best option if I want to save paper. But there are a lot of different things you can do with printing here, and it can be quite handy depending on what your needs are for your particular slideshow. That's it. That's the end of this tutorial. I hope that you learned some new tricks and tips. I sure had fun doing it, so thanks for watching.